This is Dave Roberts. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded before President Trump was admitted to Walter Reed. Please enjoy.
You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 137 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. Her lack of understanding of the issues is far eclipsing her beauty, and frankly, no longer worth reading. She's rapidly becoming a true clueless, dumb blonde. A mindless twit. Jessica Szilagyi.
Thank you for that amazing introduction. Where'd you get that?
Right off of your page.
I know. Isn't it awful?
It's
like
awesome.
Awful in a stupid way, not awful in a like, oh my gosh, can't believe that happened to you. Not like that. Just like, that is America in 2020.
Well, it's not even a good insult. Like, you're pretty and dumb. That's your best.
Thank you.
In your entire, I mean, of all the things that you can disagree with you and even not like you. I mean, there are plenty of people who don't like you, but that.
Yeah,
you said more about yourself than Jessica.
Well, we were talking about it before the show because I don't think you knew that it was a probably 60-year-old man who was behind that, and honestly, of all the things that I rant and spout off about, the conversation was about, which I think we're going to kind of get into in a roundabout way, but the conversation was about how, like, being pro-Trump is not a policy position, right? Like, you can be, I guess, you could be pro-Republican, you could be pro-Democrat, you could be pro a lot of things, but being pro-Trump is not a political ideology. And I was referencing Kelly Loeffler, of course, because she credits herself with being 100% pro-Trump, but and that obviously is what set him off and encouraged him, I guess, or the straw that broke the camel's back to call me a twit.
You know, that's even filtering through to local politics. Mm-hmm. If you're the state Senate race in where I am, came down to, well, I went to the White House 4 times. Well, I voted for Trump. And we talked about it last week. That's not a position. And, if Trump wins, like I said last week, he's around for another 4 years. Shut up. Shut up. You can love Trump. You can hate Trump. You can stand by his positions. But what does that have to do with the state? And for a legislator, to say, well, I stand with the president 100%. So, man, I don't want to rehash what we talked about last week because but yeah, the mindless twit. And I love how all your insults go to your looks. As if you could help it. I mean, I was Lady Gaga, Born This Way.
Oh, wow, Dave. Wow. Wow. Look at you.
The reference?
Yes.
You and your poker face, your poker face.
Oh, no. Cut the audio, Eric. Just cut it off. End the show right there. We are not worthy of going forward.
So let's getting back. How was your week other than being a mindless twit?
It was beautiful. We had beautiful weather. It was, well, after the rain, of course, but it was sunny and cool. It felt like fall. It was amazing. How was your week?
Well, I am down in the Southern Command. I'm at my parents' house in Fairhope, Alabama. We went to look at the condo. I think I mentioned last week that it's wrecked from the hurricane. And I mean, a total loss.
It's sad.
I was going to take my boat out. And again, this is, privilege problems. But the water's closed.
Really?
Like there was a thing on the Orange Beach website saying if you see somebody in a pleasure boat, to call the police.
Because why?
I don't know. Now, look, I made a conscious. I would have gone anyway. I made a conscious decision not to because Cito is involved in recovery right now, and if something went wrong on the boat, I'm not sure I could get rescued in time.
Well, yeah,
but that's an adult big boy decision, not the government telling me, "Oh, you can't use the water right now." I'm like, you can't close the water, a-hole.
Ocean's closed. Sorry, go home.
But it's not. Well, it's not the ocean that's closed, but you can't get to the ocean without going through state waters. But otherwise, no, it's a great week. I'm down here with my brother, his wife, and his 2 kids, and my nephews. I adore my 7-year-old nephews.
I got to
introduce one of them to Jessica today.
Yes. We don't record by video; it's only audio. But we turned our cameras on so that I could meet Preston, who's perfect.
And
no, Preston's the other one.
We just had. Yeah. You met Holden.
Yes.
Preston had no interest in what Uncle Dave does. Holden was curious about it. It's like you talk to millions of people. I said, well, let's say dozens. But he was curious. He's little Uncle Dave. I mean, but we're having a great time just being around them, and of course getting to visit with Mom and Dad, who I haven't seen since Christmas.
Dave.
COVID happened.
Yeah.
So nobody was really traveling, and even though I'm not paranoid about it, just my parents are in their 70s. If I was carrying anything, I certainly wouldn't want to infect them. My father's a heart patient. My mom's a cancer survivor. It just wasn't a great idea. But the hurricane was good enough because we were coming down to the beach anyway. We just had enough of it. We just hadn't seen them since Christmas, and we're a fairly close family. And they taught me how to play dominoes the other night.
They did.
They did. For a dime a game. I'm like, Mom, why even bet? Let's make it $100 a game.
This isn't fun.
Yeah, well, gambling has to hurt.
That's funny.
So we do want to mention Big Daddy Unlimited. Big Daddy is the sponsor for our show. They are a direct source, sort of an online buying club for everything that goes bang and everything that makes going bang quiet. You can buy guns, accessories, ammunition, silencers, short barrel shotguns, short barrel rifles, all at Big Daddy. If you want to buy a firearm or one of the other registered devices, you go to your local gun store, put their address in, they ship it to your gun store. And most times when you put in your gun store, it'll pre-populate with their FFL number and their address and everything else. You have it shipped to that store. You go, you fill out your 4473, and you leave with your gun. So big thanks to Big Daddy. You can join for $1 for the first month. If you're just curious about what they have, cost you $1. If it works out for you, you stay on as a member. If it doesn't, you're out 99 cents. I mean, so big thanks to Big Daddy Unlimited. So as we're recording, we get the news that Trump has tested positive for COVID-19.
And the internet imploded.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And everything from blaming him for having rallies to people on the left reveling in the idea of Trump being sick.
Yeah, it's disgusting. I personally, I've dreaded any time any elected official has had to go into quarantine when they were awaiting their test results. Because, obviously early on, like there weren't the rapid tests. And with Keisha Bottoms, and Newsom, we've seen a lot of people who have to go into quarantine and test positive. But I have dreaded it. I mean, I don't want anyone to be sick with anything, but just the response, oh, well, they had that coming, or maybe if, why weren't they following their own mask mandate, or why didn't they, if maybe he'd supported a mask mandate, just all this stuff. And it doesn't really matter. Like, either you want someone to be healthy and you don't wish harm on other people, or you don't, and you're a terrible person.
Yeah, I mean, it really, and I don't think anybody who listens to the show believes that we're huge Trumpers or anything else. That we're more issue driven individuals, and that we're individuals. But I wouldn't revel in Joe Biden testing positive.
Definitely not.
I'm not, and of course, I'm not a Joe Biden fan. But if I found out that Joe Biden had COVID, I wouldn't be sitting here, dancing a jig. Well, he's besides being the former vice president, he's also Joe Biden, and he's somebody's grandfather, somebody's father, and I certainly don't want to see him sick.
And beyond that, there would be huge implications of our president being hospitalized intubated in a coma on a ventilator, displaying weakness, or God forbid, passing away. Like, there are huge worldwide implications of that position for the United States. And the fact that people don't see that is alarming, aside from the humanity point where it's like, you're just gross. But I don't understand why people you don't have to like someone's politics to understand that there are implications on a huge level.
Can you imagine people dancing around when Kennedy was killed?
Absolutely not.
I mean, besides Johnson, but can you imagine people reveling in seeing, John Jr. Standing there saluting his father's casket as it goes by, and people on the other political side going, that's what he gets. I mean, it's revolting. And look, I'm certainly not implying that this is going to be lethal. He tested positive.
Sure. But there's people who are hoping for it.
That he's, but that's repugnant. And I don't agree with everything Trump does. And I've been pretty vocal about that.
It's not about that, though.
But I don't care. Yeah, because I can disagree with him on policy and not want to see his young son, finish growing up without a father, or want to see him sick or anything else. But it's repugnant to, and I know you love baseball. Mm-hmm. The pitcher that threw at Acuna, he's a pitcher for the Marlins, and hit Acuna and injured him. Got hit with a line drive the other day and broke his arm. And people were dancing up and down on the internet about, it could have happened to a nicer guy. I'm like, man, what? It's a game. Why are you enjoying somebody getting their arm broken? And that's just a microcosm. Sports are a microcosm of life, but that's where we are today. It used to be, even when I played, high school football and things, someone gets injured, everybody takes a knee. Mm-hmm. And everybody claps when he gets up or can carry it off the field and all that stuff, both sides, because we recognize that it's a game. When you look at politics, you have to pull yourself out of left versus right. I don't like his policies versus I want that SOB to die. Oh, sure, it would be good for my side if he croaked right before the election. We found out during after the Senate race that Boyd, who ran against Jason Anavatare, had COVID. And that is probably why he didn't show up to the debate, even though he didn't disclose it at the time. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't dancing in the streets when I found out that Boyd was going to the hospital with COVID. I obviously endorsed Anavatare. But even Jason's, as soon as he got the news, I pray for his recovery.
Yeah. That's the human thing to do.
Because it transcends politics.
Yes.
Is we care about each other as people. Speaking of sick, the debate was last week. Oh my God. What a shit show.
It was awful.
And oh my God. And Eric, sorry for the first bleep of the day. When you judge a boxing match, it's not how many punches you throw, it's how many you land. And they weren't even aiming at each other. It was just, it was disrespectful on both ends. I was very angry at Biden for, there's certain things you don't do. You just don't, and you know better. You don't address a president by his first name. You don't call him a liar. And again, there are ways of saying that. Mr. President, that's disingenuous, or I don't think you've got the facts correct. There are ways to say it that are not, you're a liar, you're a racist. There are ways of doing things. It was, and I'm not just banging on Biden either. The president, when you do a debate, and I don't even call these debates because there's not. As someone who debated in high school, I lettered in football, wrestling, track, and debate because I was a nerd and still a big dude. But you agree to it. Both sides sit down and they hash out a framework for this. And if the framework is you get 2 minutes uninterrupted, you get 2 minutes uninterrupted, not wrong. And oh God, I have such little respect for the way that Trump puts things. And it's not lack of respect for him or the office. It's lack of respect for the American public. That's what you have to boil things down to. And it makes me weep for this country.
You mentioned, I think you hit a little bit harder on Biden, so I'll balance the scales here. And with Trump, I didn't think anyone's minds were going to be changed. I didn't think it'd alienate people. I just knew that I was expecting a few zingers, and I was really hoping to hear them talk about some issues and articulate some issues, because with COVID at the forefront, most campaigns this season have been devoid of policy and positions, even if we can assume. So when Trump came out, I anticipated him with his, because you'd be in jail type lines from Hillary, but I did not expect the victim mentality that he kind of asserted with Chris Wallace. And he was arguing with him. He was interrupting him. And that, I think, set the tone for him interrupting Biden. And he had the opportunity to deliver some real zingers to Biden. And he missed those opportunities because he was so busy interrupting and not really listening.
He didn't land a punch until the last 30 minutes.
Right.
And you know what? He made some really good points, and he landed some good punches. But you know what? Most of the public, if you're not a political junkie, you didn't stick as long as you and I did. Like I watched the entire thing mostly to prepare for this conversation. If I was just Dave, I'd have turned it off in the first 10 minutes. I'm not going to watch this.
Mm-hmm.
I'll turn on Cartoon Network and get something more intelligent. Oh God. And you hit the nail on the head with, how do you simultaneously claim to be the most powerful person in the world and play victim? When they first came out, and they didn't shake hands because of social distancing and stuff. But when they first came out, Mr. President, Joe, good to see you. Have a good debate. I thought, oh, okay, well, this is going to be good. They're going to act like adults, and then I was disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Grossly.
Well, and I really thought that on the first one they would be diplomatic so people would want to watch the other ones, and I don't think most people want to. No, so many people were turned off by it. And what was worse is the commentary. Now, it was a Rorschach test. If you were pro-Trump before, you think he won. If you were pro-Biden before, you think he won. It's a Rorschach test. And Hannity came on. And I watched Hannity describe how Trump masterfully attacked Biden. I'm like, did you watch the same thing I did? Or was this written before you saw the debate? There was nothing masterful, respectful, productive, concise. There was none of that nothing about the debate was any of those things. And no ideas were really presented in the way that Americans could take it all in.
And how did we get from Jefferson versus Adams in long, beautifully written letters to newspapers over disagreements of how this country should move forward to calling each other poopy head?
Mm-hmm.
It baffles the mind. So if you sat sober through that, congratulations.
Yeah.
But who says you can't have fun without alcohol? Apparently, the Glenn County Board of Commissioners. Was that a decent segue?
Yeah, that was pretty good. I mean, so you looked at the outline.
You wrote
before
it for me.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, you read the outline before we started, so.
Boy, good for me. I can read what mommy writes for me. There's an alcohol ban for Frat Beach. The county is considering a measure for UGA Florida football game weekend.
Which is usually right before Halloween, right?
Yes, it's usually Halloween weekend. So it's either the first weekend of November or last weekend of October. Typically.
So, yeah. I loved how the one commissioner was like, well, if we shut the beaches down, they'll just go to another beach, but that's not our problem. Okay.
Well, it's happened for spring break all over the Southeast. I mean, I don't know much about the South, the West Coast, but Florida beaches started making alcohol on the beach illegal in spring.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Gulf Shores, which is where I am right now, made alcohol on the beach illegal the months of March, April, and May.
Well,
I was going to say, I understand. College kids don't spend money. They come down, they go to Walmart and buy a couple of cases of beer, and they absolutely wreck the beach. So I understand the idea, but
they're going to gather anyway.
Right, somewhere. It is absolutely a political NIMBY. Well, they're going to go somewhere. As long as it's not here, it's fine.
Well, and the one commissioner even said, I mean, he's been trying to shut it down since he got elected 5 years ago because he doesn't want them on the beach at all. And so COVID is a more convenient opportunity to do that. I mean, I appreciate the honesty about it, but,
It's just that he's not politically savvy enough not to say it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't from a freedom aspect, I don't understand where these folks think this is a good idea. I don't want to be on a beach with a bunch of college kids either. I still don't want them arrested.
Well, if you arrest them, you're going to put them in jail? In your jail?
Well, yeah, exactly. Look, the spring break has been out of control since the 80s. It has moved around. It used to be Fort Lauderdale. When I was growing up, it was Fort Lauderdale. Like we knew it was spring when the first kid killed himself trying to jump from his balcony into the pool and missing. Like, it's spring. But all the, individually, these municipalities, you started cracking down on it, started moving around. In Florida, started moving north. And then in Gulf Shores, they, those awful videos of women being assaulted and things like that, they started shutting it down. It's not that they wanted to enforce the laws against assault. It's that, okay, well, we're going to remove the alcohol. Well, they're smoking weed too, and that's illegal. I mean, why don't you enforce the existing laws? And look, kids are awful. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was an awful human being when I was 18 years old also.
I've always been a delight.
I'm sure, Jessica. I'm sure. You're an angel.
I agree.
You're of course you do. But that's you and I mostly agree on local government is just awful anyway. It's tyranny of those closest to you. This is more of a deterrent than legal action. I mean, I'm also, I love the tradition of the largest outdoor cocktail party.
Yeah.
Both schools have a spring break or a fall break right around that time. Both schools hate each other, and it is the culmination of the two rivals going at each other and college kids. Man, I don't know. Screw you. Enforce the existing laws. If someone's getting out of control, take care of it. But yeah. I don't know, man. I know how much you love local control.
I prefer no control.
You mean ask people to take care of themselves? Oh, that's ridiculous.
I know.
So campaign mudslinging intensifies. Yeah, exactly. Don't be absurd, Dave. Campaign mudslinging intensifies. Doug Collins lobs a zinger at Loeffler can't even acknowledge. In his latest TV ad, now running all over the state, it features his adult daughter as she speaks on Collins in what appears to be a family home. She talks about knowing her dad's heart and values, one of which includes being pro-life, elaborating on how her parents were given a choice when her mother was pregnant because doctors told them she had spina bifida. They chose life, they chose me, and the ad concludes with his daughter, who is wheelchair bound, strolling hand in hand with her dad.
Yeah, it's have you seen the ad like on TV or anything yet?
I haven't.
I think you were left I think you left town because it just started Thursday. So but it's bad.
It's not running down here.
It's bad because like the first time you watch it and you're like, ooh, did he use his daughter to make a point? But the second time you watch it and the subsequent times after, I think my opinion is that it makes Kelly Loeffler look so bad because I don't know if she didn't know or didn't care or what, but his daughter has clearly overcome like tremendous odds. I mean, she in the commercial and things like that, it kind of highlights her accomplishments of, I guess, she in Special Olympics and she has a full-time job and is able to be independent and things that they never thought she would be. And I think most pro-life people can agree that the message that that the commercial is sending is the epitome of pro-life. Like, you don't know what's in store, and it's great. But it makes, because she starts off and she says, well, I don't know Kelly Loeffler, but I know my dad. And it's obviously in response to the ads that Loeffler's running about how he's not pro-life and his record is, crappy, and that his he doesn't have the support of pro-life organizations. It's just not something she can even, you can't respond to something like that. You can't respond to something so deeply personal, even if it was exploited a little bit. She cannot say anything, and they'd be wise to stop running any type of ad that mentions him not being pro-life, in my opinion.
I think the argument itself is stupid. Now, look, I'm a pro-life guy, and you know that. I think the ad's stupid. You're both pro-life. To say I'm more pro-life, well, no. I think it's stupid. Congress cannot address that issue. It just can't. The Supreme Court, if that comes up, the SCOTUS is where that will be hashed out because they spoke. And if they want to overturn the precedent, if they want to re-examine the laws, it'll come from most likely one of the states, Georgia, Alabama being two examples of that. It's not going to come before the Senate. So the argument itself is stupid.
Well, in his defense, she started it from the standpoint of putting out fault. I mean, she's been hammering him on the fact that he's not pro-life. And she's dense enough to believe that we need to put conservative justices on the Supreme Court to advance certain agendas instead of having constitutional justices on the Supreme Court to advance certain issues. And so she's politicized this when she can't and shouldn't and has no, she's not a puppet master for this.
She's getting desperate.
Well, yeah.
And when she was appointed, I had an open mind about her. I didn't know a whole lot about her, but yes, I'm open-minded about it. But just from both of them, and Collins has internet ads running, showing him in his Air Force uniform. I guess he's a reserve chaplain.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got a picture of him like taking stuff off an airplane or something. I don't know. Like, first of all, he's an officer. If he was unloading anything, he stood there for the picture and they moved aside. Like, all right, chaplain, move. The debate itself is absurd. I have not enjoyed anything about this race at all. And I think that sitting politicians should be challenged. And that's fine. But these jabs going back and forth. Well, I'm a Air Force chaplain. Well, you're not pro-life. Well, here's my daughter in a wheelchair. I'm like,
no, that's not a good look.
That's not. And you know what? If we were having an abortion debate, the point of you don't know what's going to happen. Even when Connie and I were trying to have kids, we talked about an amnio and whether or not we would have one with the risk that involved it. Well, what do you find out if you do have a fetus that has a disease? I mean, would you terminate? And like, no. So what's the point of the test?
Mm-hmm.
That's a wonderful conversation to have outside of this window. So if this were a traditional race where a Republican, a Democrat, a pro-life and a pro-choice person, people are going at it, that may be, but this race has just gotten uglier and uglier. And I so wish Shane Hazel was in this race.
Listen, I really have been advocating from the beginning for him to run, to have both seats. I don't.
He's going to write him in on the ticket all the way down.
Yeah. He gets 2 votes in the Senate. I don't see what the big deal is. Just let somebody who knows what they're doing do their job.
I heard a state rep say that he wishes the senators were still elected by the state, as it was intended. That the Senate is the place where the states are represented, and the House of Representatives is the people's house. That's when our country started declining. Was when we repealed the 17th Amendment. Yeah, and that's, well, I thought it was when we gave women the right to vote. But
well, that was after. We were already on the decline.
Yeah.
They just accelerated it. We can talk about that another week.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, you think I'm joking?
Oh, no, I know you're not. That's why it's great. But no, I first of all, the idea that we have 2 houses, both are represented by, elected by the people, I think is troubling. I do wish that the Senate were the representatives of the states and advocate for the state that appoints them versus the House. Instead, we have 2 houses that are exactly the same, except one serves for longer than the other. But I digress on that. The argument itself is ridiculous. You're right. She started it. She threw the first punch on this. Man, I don't know. I don't like either one of them.
No, they both are terrible. I just, we're 30 days out essentially which means that we're going to get to the point where they're all dropping, a new ad every couple of days, and it's going to get more and more personal and more aggressive. And so we just need to brace ourselves.
Well, they can't highlight any policy differences. There's no policy difference between the two of them. All they can do is get personal. I don't like bringing your kids out. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, there's no argument back against it. The other is, if you don't want your family hit, don't put them out front.
Mm-hmm.
And then to hide behind a wheelchair, that's cowardly.
Okay.
It is. It's cowardly because you threw something out that she can't counterpunch. I mean, what's Loeffler supposed to do?
Well, there's nothing she can do. Like I said, she should not even acknowledge the ad, and she should stop the conversation about life.
Well, it's not an issue that's going to come up. It's just not. There's not going to be an abortion bill that's going to come before the Senate. It's just not. If we had an intelligent debate, it would be about laws that might actually come before the Senate. I don't want to hear that. Oh, the NRA endorses me. I get an A+, Neil gets an A. What are your policy positions? How are you going to add to freedom? The problem that I see is that the American public doesn't have the bandwidth to look at that.
They don't want to, though.
These are right. Part of it's willful ignorance. The other part is they are more interested in voting for American Idol or seeing who's behind the mask on some stupid singing show than they are about actual debate on policy. I mean, I hate to say the American public's stupid, but they're stupid.
Mm.
Except for the listeners to this show, which are obviously the smartest people in Georgia.
All 12 of them.
All dozen.
Yes.
All dozen listeners.
Yes. As you told Holden.
Exactly. Of course, these are our opinions and not necessarily those of All on Georgia. Certainly not those of any All on Georgia reporting not offering commentary on the show. We do not represent the opinions of Big Daddy Unlimited, the generous sponsor of our show, or any rational human being anywhere. COVID-19, life in Georgia, an update. Dealing with the pandemic in Georgia cost taxpayers more than $1 billion. That's a B, billion. $1 billion in federal spending grants, isolation gowns, masks, mobile facilities, doctors, and nurses at hospitals and nursing homes. Jessica, you actually put out a story, I don't know if it was a story or a post on your Facebook about these quote-unquote free tests.
Yeah. I've had a problem with this all along because, well, we are still not sure how much money's been spent at the state level. The legislature allocated $100 million initially during this when they resumed session and all that fun stuff. Well, actually before session adjourned, and then there were things that they made up for and then budget cuts and all this stuff. And ours, I think, came from the rainy day fund. But there's this, it's hilarious to me because it's coming from state officials and others that there's this idea that the federal money, it's okay because it came from the federal government. Like, it's all our money. It's all our money that we are just burning. And there's no end in sight. And I think that's what's so frustrating to me. There's no regard for it, a timeline. There's no, we are testing so many asymptomatic people, which costs a fortune, which was kind of my point with the number of tests that, if it's $20 a test, I think it was like $55 million at the state level that we're at by now. And we know that they're more than $20 a test. And don't get me wrong, for people like first responders or, and the state's not paying for this, but the feds, I don't have a problem with proactively testing before someone's asymptomatic because, it makes sense. But having, 35-year-old Karen pull through the drive-through to get tested for the third time this week because she's just super worried about it and not having any expense to that to me is not appropriate. And our state funding or state spending of the federal money, I think, kind of reflects that throw all the marbles at the wall approach.
Well, or if you want to travel, you have to provide a test.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to travel out of the country to the countries that are actually open. Damn it. But we're telling people, go get tested. And you're right. People, I've got a sniffle. I'm going to run to the health department, wait in line. You should have seen the line in Paulding County. I thought there was an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Because the health department was right next door to our Chamber of Commerce. I was like, what the hell's going on at the chamber? And it's a line of cars a mile long waiting to go in and get COVID tested. And I had something to do with the chamber, so I had to break line, and I got stopped by one of the workers. I'm like, no, I'm going to the chamber. I've got a meeting at the Chamber of Commerce. Like, oh, okay, come on through. But it was ridiculous. And you can't tell me every one of them is symptomatic.
Exactly. Well, and only 10% of the people being tested are positive. Less than that right now, but that was the high. Yeah.
It's a snapshot. It is 11 o'clock on Friday. I tested negative. It doesn't say, it doesn't include anybody from the second that swab is done. Everything that happens after is possible exposure. It's absurd. Yeah. And even in the presidential debate, they were arguing over how, well, I'll provide more tests than you will. I'm like, oh, what? And to your point earlier, I hear the federal, state versus local fund arguments all the time. Well, our budget includes this much for whatever it is, but so much of that comes from the state, so much of that comes from the Fed. I'm like, you jackasses, it's all my money.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Once again, we demonstrate. Well, let me tell you why you're wrong. But in the name of the show, we're not necessarily saying that you and I are wrong. It's why everybody else is wrong.
Yeah, what's wrong
everybody
with the way
sucks.
Yes.
And everything is awful. So this is, we obviously are the best at talking people off the ledge because everything sucks and everybody's awful.
Best wishes.
Throw yourself off that ledge and enjoy the fall. So, I mean, the spending, what do you have here? $220 million for a subsidiary of Jackson Healthcare, a healthcare staffing company. $51.5 million to PAE Holding, infrastructure and logistics company, converted the Georgia World Congress Center into a temporary hospital that staffed it. $35 million to Sandy Springs Ipsum Diagnostics for COVID tests. $6.5 million, former state official gubernatorial frontrunner to provide isolation and medical gowns. Good God.
Mm-hmm.
These are real numbers, and politicians have gotten just too used to spending. It's not their money. They don't care.
Oh, but tell them about the zinger.
$4.29 million agreement to buy gloves, surgical gowns from a company of a former legislator. Guess who?
Dun, dun, dun.
Rakestraw.
Ugh.
Hurricane Paulette.
Yeah, but that's not even the worst part about it. That's not even the worst part. She incorporated her business on April 1st. April Fools. Just kidding. We're the fools. She incorporated, which, mind you, was during, like, things were shutting down and everyone else is getting slowed services. She's incorporated on April 1st. On April 13th, Jima signs a contract with her company for $390,000 for $1.5 million rubber gloves. And the next day, they signed another order for 500,000 surgical gowns for $4.3 million. I don't know about you, but my company that's been in existence for 10 business days is not going to get a state contract that quickly.
No, she's a swamp monster going way back. Mm-hmm. And I think you and I have just talked. Yeah, have you ever spoken with Paulette?
Yeah.
She is bright as a box of rocks. She's sharp as a spoon. I mean, honestly, and I don't say that lightly. There are lots of people that I disagree with that I say, well, he's intelligent or she's intelligent. Paulette was at a luncheon and Tom Graves was answering questions, and she asked a question and everybody was baffled. We all cocked our head to the side like a dog you're trying to explain physics to. What the hell did you say? And Tom saved her. He's like, well, what I think you're asking is blah, 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 and then answered what he was going to answer anyway. But we were all stunned. I mean, you're going to tell me that this person who the desk I'm doing this show on is smarter, somehow formed a company with the assets and the production capabilities within 10 days and landed a contract? No.
For altogether is 4.7 million.
Yeah, no, she's doing just fine. Apparently she still has all the connections she needs. Good God. And again, this is my district she came from.
Well, and I think what's frustrating about that is, no, it's not illegal, but it looks awful. And I don't expect state agencies in an emergency to research who and when is behind an organization. However, Jima, this was not their first rodeo. They knew this was coming down the pipeline. The legislature had adjourned. I mean, she wasn't in it, but the legislature had adjourned more than over 2 weeks prior. So Jima and everyone had been activated to begin getting things in line. And when they did that, when they started scouting resources and putting places they were going to put out bids for and RFPs and things like that, her company wasn't even created to be on those lists. That's what's frustrating to me. And then all of a sudden she got on the list. And then, of course, she got the contract.
And hell, I'm jealous.
Sure.
I mean, how in the hell? Well, I say, I don't know. I mean, we all know, but how do you get first in line to screw the government?
Is that rhetorical, or do you want me to actually outline it?
I mean, I don't even know what job she had. She ran a printing company into the ground.
No. She told the AJC that she was in marketing and business development.
Well, she's obviously a hell of a business developer.
Yeah. Speedy Gonzalez over there.
Yeah, I mean, hell, I should hire her. Maybe in 10 days, I'll have a statewide contract for air conditioning. Of course, I can't afford the $4.5 million it would cost me to hire the lovely person. I was going to say something nasty, but I won't. But you know what? She is probably happy that Joseph won that seat, because she couldn't do this as a state rep. And I thought we had mentioned her for the last time on the show.
No.
In fact, I remember being on the show where I'm like,
I would never commit to that. I would never commit to that.
Yeah, but at some point I said, we don't need to spike the football. She's gone. She's a private individual now. We just won't even mention her anymore. It's just no reason. She was a perpetual loser of the week when we had that segment, or when you had that segment. But obviously, she's not a loser of the week. There are 4.5 million reasons why she's a winner. I know, I'm starting to make grunt noises like you do. Ugh. Oh, anyway, off of Hurricane Paulette. A constitutional officer is battling with appointed officials over the best course of action for public schools.
This is a doozy. A couple weeks... Go ahead.
No, take it away.
No, I've been following this because we've been covering this story on All on Georgia, and 2 weeks ago, at this point, Richard Woods announced that he was going to recommend that we, so right now, end of course testing for students, which is a standardized test ordered by the federal government, it has to weigh 20% of a student's final grade. And because of COVID and hybrid learning and some students in the state being 100% virtually learning, he decided that that course should not be, or that test should not be as heavily weighted. And he recommended dropping it down to 0.01% of this total grade, which personally, I think it should be like that all of the time, COVID or not, because that's the whole problem with teaching to the test. But that's a different issue here. So his recommendation was go from 20% to 0.01%, so negligible. This was because a couple weeks before that, the U.S. Department of Education said, no, we're not going to give waivers for standardized testing like we did last year when everyone got sent home early. You have to administer the test. And so the political move by Woods was fine, we'll administer the test, but we're just not going to count it for anything. Again, brilliant would be an understatement if that's what they did all the time. But that was the recommendation. Now, keep in mind that Richard Woods is a constitutional officer. He's elected by the voters. His position is in our state constitution. Public education is in our state constitution, and his duties are defined. So, fast forward to a week after his recommendation, the state school board, which is appointed by the governor, we have one representative for each congressional district. The state school board voted 8-4 to cancel out Woods' recommendation and set the weight at 10%. And Kemp has an 8-4. There were some absences if you're trying to do math over there, but Kemp supported what Woods wanted to do, and Kemp has appointed some of the people on the state school board, but a lot of them remain deal appointees. And the state school board is not a constitutional body. It was created by the legislature at the request of the governor several years ago, so that he could have control, because governors like to have control. And so this appointed, unelected, unaccountable board is going to have more impact on the way that public administration of education occurs in Georgia than the constitutional officer elected by the voters to do that exact thing does.
One of the biggest errors that George W. Bush did was create No Child Left Behind. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be totally opposite of what I said a couple weeks ago, insulting teachers. But the opposite, let teachers teach. Local districts know how best to handle their students. And beyond that, every teacher in every classroom knows best how to reach those students. I hate standardized tests, especially from the federal level. And those standardized tests are used as a marker for how much schools get. And this is where we get into magnet schools and everything else for these districts and individual schools. If you have a failing school, you put a magnet school in there for whatever it is, art, science, whatever, in order to bring the overall test scores up of the school, not actually educating the students better, but bring smart students from other districts so that their scores look better. The ability to just sit down with a student and teach has been ripped from these teachers. And it forces really good educators out of the field. Why? Why do I have to spend 80% of my time doing nothing but teaching and tests so that we can look good to the federal government so we can get our funding?
But I don't think most people know that frustration is coming so much from appointed people, regulators of sorts.
Right. I don't mind a standardized test as a marker of what students need. So if we give Paulding County students a standardized test and we find out that we're really lacking in science or we're really lacking in history, we're all lacking in history. Every school district in the country is lacking in history. As a marker of, okay, this is where we need to do better as a school district, as a school, as a teacher. This is where we need to do better with these students. Totally fine with it. But this, man, I don't know. I don't know. We're saying this as two childless people. Yeah, but if why do we have a state school superintendent if the governor's appointees can override his decision? And you're talking about, again, state, something that was created by the legislature overriding like multiple levels of constitutional authority. It's disgusting to me. Right. It is. Yeah. Why have the position? If you're going to castrate them, why even have the position?
Well, and you have this leftover deal administration crap because Kemp has, I don't think that, I'm not going to speak on behalf of either of them, but I think that they are more, Kemp and Woods are more in sync on issues. And I think they're respectful of each other's position. And he had Kemp's blessing to make the recommendation that he did, which isn't necessary, but it's certainly nice. I think it goes a long way. And then these people that are left over from Nathan Deal's administration, who, mind you, don't have any or have very little education experience, all of a sudden are like, checkmate.
Right. I don't, as far as educational experience, I don't care. If you're a principled person, the fact that you've never worked as a teacher doesn't bother me. But you're right. They're political appointees. We need to get politics out of education. It's all about money. And nowhere in this do they give a damn about the students.
No. Or the teachers.
So, it is all about politics. It's all about what's going to read best. They don't give a damn about the teachers. They don't give a damn about the students. It's how is this going to read in the, I would say newspaper, but on the blogs.
Not good. So, I can tell you, not good.
So, on not good, let's get to closing thoughts.
Well, I'm sure some of you have heard that there's too many candidates in the one Senate jungle primary race, and the new voting machines we have there's not enough room on them to list all of the candidates. And a federal judge had to get involved and order them to hurry and make some decisions. Of course, federal judges are, because there's always lawsuits, but I just find it remarkable that we spent all this time studying, bidding out voting machines, spending $100 million on the machines that were state of the art and just remarkable. And here we are with 20, one dropped out of the Senate race, but his name will still appear, 21 candidates on a ballot for a particular race, and a digital machine can't accommodate it. Yet paper could? Okay. I just... Another failure for government because they selected this.
What are these things? Commodore 64s?
Yeah. DOS.
So, yeah, my iPhone has more capacity than the voting machines. Brilliant. That's just wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Even the
don't give them any ideas. I don't want to be voting. Don't give them ideas. I don't want to vote by cell phone.
Voting should involve crawling across broken glass. Because there are people that I would vote for and against that I would crawl across broken glass to vote for. So no, I don't want them voting by iPhone. But the computing power of my iPhone eclipses the machines that elect our president. They don't have room for them. Good God, Jessica. Thank you for the good news.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for. I am all on Georgia's good news correspondent. If you haven't noticed by now, you can use that as your intro next week.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the same thing I said last week. Falcons suck. Thank God for the Braves. Braves last week won their first postseason series in 19 years. It's hard to be an Atlanta sports fan. It really is. But on that note, I want to thank Eric Cumby, our editor, Big Daddy Unlimited, our sponsor, Jessica Szilagyi for being the brains of this operation. Apologize for my disconnected thoughts this week as I'm sitting feet away from the pool that I'm about to jump into. I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.